Hey guys, what's going on? Thank you so much for watching today, and welcome to our very first speed build with the Europe pack that is launching today. First and foremost, thank you so much, Frontier. Of course, I would not be able to cover this content early for you guys if it wasn't for them, so thank you so much. We're back in Mayberry Park Zoo, which is our new zoo project. Of course, it is a sandbox zoo build. There have been 2 episodes so far, if you haven't caught those, they are up on the channel. We did an entrance build, and then we did the prairie dog build. Now, if you're familiar with the park, when you come in through the entrance, you see the prairie dogs right in the front. We're gonna take a quick right-hand turn, and that's where our badgers will be. Now, when I very first started building this habitat, I was not actually building for the badgers. I was building for the lynx, because when the Europe pack got announced, I was having a really hard time deciding between whether the lynx or the badger was going to be my, my favorite animal, the one I wanted to build for first, because I mean, to be honest, I love all 4 animals and even the exhibit animal that we got. But in terms of deciding who to build for first, I was kind of stuck. So I finally decided on the lynx after much deliberation. So up until about halfway through this footage, in my mind, I'm building for the lynx. Now let's back up just one step, because as we're getting into this, we're building the first kind of outskirts, the barrier of the habitat here with all this mesh and all these beams and things like that. None of these are new pieces, but before we get into the majority of the habitat, if you're not aware, we are getting 4 new animals with the Europe pack. We are getting the Eurasian lynx, the Alpine ibex, the European badger, and the European fallow deer, as well as the exhibit animal, the fire salamander. So those are the animals coming with the game, as well as 250 plus new build pieces. So I'm very excited about that, obviously, as a builder. And I love the animals, and we talk about the animals every single video. We will again in this video as well, but I do love the build pieces because they just offer more creativity. You have more ideas, new pieces to play with. It's kind of just an inspiration boost. So very excited about that. We'll get into that in just a minute. But the 4 animals that we're getting, I think, are fantastic. So my plans for the animals are, obviously, we're adding the badger here. I really want to add the fallow deer to Mayberry Park as well, in addition to adding it to Sakura Zoo. I think it would be a really good addition to Sakura Zoo as well. And then I really don't have a whole lot of plans for the ibex or the lynx, as far as I have ideas for the lynx, but I don't really know which zoo specifically to add it to. Hopefully all or most of these animals will also be coming to a new franchise zoo that we have yet to start. But I am on top of that. It will be coming very soon, I promise. But onward to the build. So I was working off of a reference picture for this one, shocker, I know, but it was mostly just all this mesh wire. It was for some sort of climbable animal, because there was climbing features in the habitat, like little shelves and things like that for them. But what I found is that when I actually was almost like 90% done with this habitat, and I went ahead and put in the lynx just climbed all over the roof, it escaped the habitat, it morphed through the walls, because the walls that I used are climbable. Now, normally in a sandbox zoo, I really don't care much if the animal can stay contained. I really don't care much if it really works in game, because it's a sandbox zoo. It's made to look pretty, right? But it was so unusable in the sense that the lynx wouldn't even walk around on the ground. They would just go straight up the walls, climb them, go around on the roof, jump out, wander around the zoo. Like, it wasn't going to be feasible even in a sandbox zoo. So that's when I decided that, okay, fine. I was deliberating between these 2 animals anyway, and this, I think, is just the world showing me that it should have been for the badger all along. Excuse me. So that's what I did, is I ended up changing it to the badger halfway through. This is a fairly simple habitat. It took me a couple hours to do, only because the mesh work and the framing of this habitat was really tedious. I wouldn't say it was difficult, but it was just a little tedious to get done. And you'll see once I get to the roof, I do take some shortcuts where I'm not really concerned if things line up as best as they possibly could, which is something that's abnormal for me. Normally I kind of, stress over the little itty bitty details and stuff like that, but not today, because I just kind of wanted to get it done. And the mesh does not necessarily show the mistakes as much as something else would. And you're not really looking at the roof all that often, so I didn't really care too much about it. Other than the front part of the habitat, I also do a very quick little backstage. The reason I chose Mayberry Park Zoo as my first speed build for launch day is because, I was saying that Mayberry Park Zoo is probably more like an East Coast zoo, right? We were talking about like Cincinnati or Maine or somewhere like that is kind of where I was drawing inspiration from. And, the East Coast is going to have a lot of European influence, because that was the first part of the US that was settled when we came over. And so it kind of just made sense to me that maybe we start morphing this more into some European architecture inspiration style zoo. I'm not going to go as far as to say that we're going to change the location of the zoo, but I felt like some of these new pieces, and I really don't use a whole lot of them in this build specifically, but going forward, I think we can take some inspiration from that architecture style and kind of bring that into Mayberry. The most that you'll see of the new pieces and kind of that inspiration is going to be with the very quick and easy, simple backstage building that I add to this one. So I do add a little building right behind it that looks like where the keepers would come in, the animals would come from, stuff like that. And we get this really cool wooden panel piece. Love it. I absolutely love it. So I used it as a border around the bottom of the building in this one. But it could also be used as a fence itself. It really does look like a very common just wood panel piece that you'd see in a zoo. You'll see it coming up in just a minute when we do get to there. But yeah, so just kind of using some of those inspirations from Europe. Europe is such a huge place, one that I am obviously not really familiar with all the different countries that are over there and everything like that. So if you guys have some good places to find inspiration, please do let me know. Zoos that you've visited over there that might have some cool architecture or buildings, or just architecture and buildings in general, I would absolutely love to see it. Right now we're working on this little fence. Don't get too attached. I didn't completely delete it, so I do save it for possible use in a future project. But for this one, I felt that it really didn't fit the style that I was going for. So I end up replacing it with basically the same style fence, but made out of the habitat, the climbable pieces that just look a little bit more like common zoo pieces to me. I don't know what it is, but that's just kind of the best I can describe it. Is it just looks like a really common zoo piece, right? It's just kind of a natural wood log that they've thrown together to make a fence out of. So I ended up switching it out for that, but I do like this fence still, which is why I kind of saved it for possible use elsewhere in the zoo, but I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think if you'd like. So, jumping in to talk about our little badger friends in the wild, their actual range in the world would be present from the far west areas of Ireland and Spain to the eastern edges of Russia, China, and Japan. The northern boundary of the Eurasian badger range extends to the Russian Arctic Circle and Finland, and the southern boundary occurs along the southeastern coast of China. So they can be found in a wide variety of areas. Specifically, their habitat, or their ideal habitat, would include deciduous or conifer forests, as well as maybe some mixed woodlands, always adjacent to some open fields. In addition, they might occupy hedges, scrubs, grassland, or semi-deserts within those areas. When searching for a set location, they prefer tree, scrub, and rock-covered areas that will cover the entrance to their set being their den, their home, their burrow. Other favorable set conditions include well-drained soils that they are easily able to excavate and relatively free from human disturbance. Very cool, and you guys can see at the very end I do include a little clip of the badgers going down into their dens. That is one of the new features coming to the game, and not coming to the DLC specifically, but included in free update 1.8, I believe it is. But we know that the aardvarks can also use the little den, and I'm assuming things like maybe the prairie dogs and the meerkats as well, but I'm not sure because I actually haven't quite tested it yet. So you can let me know if you do know before I know. As far as their physical description, you guys can obviously see from looking at them in game that they are black and white, but this here says that the Eurasian badgers have a stocky body with short, robust limbs and a short tail. Female mass ranges from 6.6 to 13.9 kilograms, and male mass ranges from 9.1 to 16.7 kilograms. So males are going to be slightly bigger than the females. Males and females do not differ in head body length, which ranges from 56 centimeters to 90 centimeters. The tail length ranges from 11.5 to 22.2 centimeters. That's a lot of measurements for you guys. Get out your ruler. That way you can know exactly how big these little guys are. Eurasian badgers are known for their distinguishing dark stripes that run from their nose through the eyes to each ear. And then it just says to get that kind of hazy, gray, black, white kind of coat on their back, each individual hair is white at the base and darker at the tip. So each individual hair is going to be a gradient of those colors and not just individual hairs are white, individual hairs are black or gray. So that is going to be a little bit about their physical description. Last but not least, I do want to talk a little bit about their conservation status. So they are widespread throughout their range, and numbers have increased in Europe over the last decade. They are listed as least concern on the IUCN Red List, which is fantastic. However, despite this, changing climate patterns, especially during fall and spring, may hinder badgers' survival. Warmer springs may cause badgers to end their extended torpor early, thus driving them to search for food during months when little sustenance is available. And for those of you that don't know, torpor is kind of a version of hibernation. It's not a true hibernation, but that's kind of what it is. During the winter months, they're going to shut down a little bit and not go out and hunt for food per se. So that is a little bit about our badger friends. Let me know, as always, if you have any other fun badger facts or information, stuff I missed, stuff you'd think I would find interesting. Go ahead and leave that down in the comments below. I absolutely love learning from you guys. You guys always have some pretty fantastic facts. But let's go ahead and jump back to the build. So the first piece that I want to talk about is this little wall piece that I'm using right here. In the DLC, we are getting over 250 new building pieces, including this entire wall set. So along with the wall sets that you're familiar with, the wall, the arch, the door, the window, all the little bits in between, we get this off the grid version as well. And it's such a simple, very classic texture in my opinion when it comes to zoos, as like you can use it as stone flooring, you can use it as a little wall, you can use it as the side of buildings, you know, little backings to habitats. It's just something that it was one of those things where I wasn't sitting back going, wow, you know what we really need is a new stone wall set. But now that we have it, it's like, why did we not have it? I'm so glad that we have it now, you know? It's like you don't know what you need until you're actually shown what you need, and you're like, how did I live without this before? So I'm very excited to utilize that. I have some ideas in the back of my head as far as what to build with them, so I cannot wait to jump into that. Here I'm kind of going through and exploring some of the enrichment items, and you can see that I've searched Eurasian lynx, because even up until this point I was still going to make this a lynx habitat. So I was trying to make them a little bridge enrichment thing. We still will save this. We'll talk about it when we do the lynx habitat, but I wanted to leave it in just in case, you know, this is my first video coming out. Maybe spark some inspiration for you guys. I'm not sure what you're working on, but you know, maybe it might help you out. So we'll leave this in here, but I don't end up using it. Obviously badgers can't climb, so we end up putting just the burrow and some other little enrichment items in for them. The other pieces that you saw that are new are going to be on our backstage building, our very quick, easy, simple backstage building, but those bottom wood panels, love, love, love them. I don't actually remember now off the top of my head what they're technically like labeled as or supposed to be used for, but I think that they're awesome detail for the lower part of the building. I didn't use too many new pieces in this build, I will say. I just kind of had this vision in my mind and none of the new pieces kind of fit with it. I was more kind of excited about having a badger, to be honest. But as I mentioned before, you can see here I'm putting all this climbing stuff all over the wall. Again, was still thinking that it was for the lynx, and it's not until basically right after this when I changed my mind. We're making this little house here. We're gonna make this as like what would be the little shelter and utilize another new little piece. We have this new little wooden door, and it's like a little square door, perfect for little entrances to animal dens, animal little houses, stuff like that. Obviously the animal can't actually use it because it is basically just a blockade. It's a decal. There's no way to enter through the object, but it's this little red door right here. I end up obviously recoloring it, but it looks like it's a little door that can be opened, that they can go inside. Maybe that's kind of the start to the backstage area. Didn't do an interior for this one. You guys know how I feel about interiors. I do not like them very much, so I decided not to build one for this habitat. But I think it came out as a cute little area for the badgers to maybe go in at night, or go in when they're not on exhibit, or they can open it up and they can just kind of hang out in it. Now you can see our little badgers are in game. They are in the enclosure and kind of walking around. I wanted to make sure I got all the scaling right and everything. And I'm just going through and placing some of their enrichment items as well as their food and stuff like that. At this point, I kind of dipped my toe in to see what new foliage we got, because we did get some new trees and things. Absolutely love them. Again, they look like very classic, just temperate kind of zoo trees. But I wanted to have this like dead log hanging down, or laying on the ground, rather, not hanging down, laying on the ground for them to kind of climb over and walk around, adding some of these are olive trees, and I love the texture on the leaves and the color, the kind of like bluey green color. I think it's awesome. I also really love this ground cover right here. I think they're periwinkle leaves is what they're called. Again, another new little bush coming in the update in the DLC, and really does a good job at giving that like really low-lying foliage. Obviously, a periwinkle is a low-lying foliage in itself, but it looks really good. It adds some greenery here and there, kind of growing out from underneath things is how I've used it. So underneath the log, underneath the rocks, stuff like that. I actually totally forgot we had little water bowls, so you can see me trying like the big water, the little water fountain, and then I realized, oh yeah, we have teeny tiny water bowls. I completely forgot. That's how often I actually use the water, the in-game water pieces, is I normally just do like a dip in the ground and water and concrete it out, but this is such a small habitat I wasn't able to do that. From here, we are just going to finish up the roof, and it is at this point that I want to remind you, please don't judge my lineup so closely, because I am just kind of putting these pieces in to make it look like they are connecting, so there's not these big open spots, but some of these pieces don't line up perfectly, and I am a-okay with that. It is finished enough for me, so hopefully it doesn't bother you guys too much. But other than that, there's just a couple minutes left on the speed build. Let let me know what you guys think about the Europe pack. Are you picking it up? Are you excited for it? Did you get things that you wanted or the things you wanted included? Just let me know. Overall thoughts and opinions down below would be fantastic. If you made it this far in the video, it means I hope you liked it. If you want to leave a like, it really does help me out, and I greatly do appreciate it. We'll be covering Planet Zoo, obviously, going forward very heavily. We're going to build for all of the animals in the Europe pack. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. If you want to chat further, keep up with things that I may not make an entire video on, but just small little updates here and there on the various games that we cover, I am also on Instagram, Discord, as well as Twitter, and I would love to see you guys over there as well. All those links are down in the description below. But without further ado, there's nothing really else I have to say for this video, so I'm going to leave you with the cinematics. I tried to get some cinematics of the overall enclosure, but as well as some cinematics of the badger animations themselves, and just kind of them like walking around, scratching their faces, stuff like that, because I know you guys probably like to see the animals as well. And we'll just finish up this very last bit of a little bit of guest area to make it look a little bit finished, like it's not just kind of plopped in the middle of a zoo. We want to incorporate it with the rest of the project. But anyway, guys, I am gonna hop out of here. I got a couple more videos I'm working on for you guys, eagerly recording so that I have stuff while I go on vacation that you guys will be able to watch. So I'm gonna hop off. I thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!